Hey guys and Geigers, this one's going to be short. This is the next part of my introduction to monster theory. Today we're going to look at the first thesis of Jeffrey Jerome Cohen's 7 theses about monster theory and monster culture. Thesis 1 is the monster's body is a cultural body. And I'm just going to explain a little bit what that means. This is a simple chart which I created to explain the axes among which a monster appears. There's time, place, and culture. And depending on the time and the place, and of course the culture, 2 cultures can exist in the same time and place, you'll get different monsters, because monsters are reflections of fears, desires, worries, this kind of thing. So let's see, I actually made a even better version of this chart. I don't know if it's better or worse, you tell me, but this basically is showing how different things converge to, there's different roots, for example, these 2 are both mermaid type creatures, merfolk, fish people, but they don't necessarily have the same roots. They do eventually, the Japanese Ningyo and the Western merfolk, or siren or Nead or whatever, they all kind of blend together. It becomes more of a global thing. But where we have the Ningyo being this very horrific monster-like being that kind of looks like Oni, which is what we're concerned with in this particular series, because I'll be applying these theses eventually to Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, and the promised Neverland, Yakusoku no Nebarando. Right here, 2 Oni there, and then with me is the ever gorgeous Lam, and I have a little bitty Oni mask right here from my travels in Kyushu. Basically, a similar kind of monster, or even the same monster, will resonate in a different way in a different time, place, and culture. And so where even the siren originally, see, you have the split tail, this has its own, like, all kinds of metaphorical meanings with seduction and all kinds of meanings that the church kind of forced onto this creature, because originally sirens were like harpies. They were bird creatures, but it suited the church more to make them, to kind of blend them in with merfolk mythology. So because they were sexier, and they wanted to kind of paint the feminine as evil, and so it kind of fit the purposes. But in the modern age, when we see this, we think of Starbucks and coffee. Christmas blend, not bad. So that's basically it. The monster's body is a cultural body. It's basically, this thesis posits that the monster itself is pure culture and is made to be read, something to be read, something to be picked apart, and to kind of discover what that monster is supposed to represent, because the word monster means warning or portent in the original Latin. So In other words, if something is going on in that society that maybe shouldn't be going on, some kind of taboo is being broken, then a monster will appear as a result of that. That was the belief. So when there was a non-normal, I don't want to use the word normal, but when there was an atypical birth, they would look for reasons, they would say, oh, it's because somebody's dancing. That kid, Kevin Bacon, is out there in the barn dancing, and that's why we have two-headed snakes now. So this kind of thing. So, throughout history, since the beginning of civilization, we've always had monsters, and the monsters have always represented something. There is a little bit of extension on this particular thesis, and that is that it's also been posited that it's not simply these monsters. We shouldn't just look at what they're supposed to represent. We should also look at the process of monsterization, like how do they become monsters? And I think we will actually look at that theme as we start to apply it to the comics, because there's machinations, there's processes that we see going on in the comics. It's quite interesting. Just, to before I get into it, because this video is kind of short, I think I can get into it a little bit more. The reason that I did this presentation at all in the first place is because I was reading Kimetsu and I was reading Neverland at the same time. They both have Oni, the Japanese demon or devil. But I think actually Oni is even a different thing than those things, though there was lots of similarities. And they look completely different. And they seem to be completely different. But the more I dug into it, the more I realized, not as different and as I might have thought. So we'll get into that. We've got 6 more theses to go through after this. Please bear with me. I'll try to keep them short so that after you watch them, we can jump right into the analysis of the comics. All right. Y'all keep it real, and I'll see you in the funny papers. Gaijin Guy out.